I actually started in July of 1984, and what made me interested in Lehigh was the opportunity to help elevate the quality of student life up to the quality of the academic experience. It was a beautiful campus. People, everyone I talked to spoke with such pride about being affiliated with Lehigh. It just inspired me. As I say, I came to Lehigh as Dean of Students, and I was in that position for 3 years. And then a restructuring led to additional responsibilities. I became the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs, and that included both the Dean of Students Office, the Counseling Center, the Health Center, Campus Police, and the Chaplain's Office. And I was in that role until 1995, about 8 years, and then I became in my current role, Vice Provost for Student Affairs. And that includes responsibilities for life outside the classroom, basically. The areas I mentioned, plus we've added some additional areas since then. We actually created a health promotion and prevention strategies position. I now also supervise directly the Women's Center, Office of Multicultural Affairs, and our LGBT Services Office. Grew up in a small town in western New York. It's called Canandaigua, New York. It's outside of Rochester in the Finger Lakes area, beautiful area in western New York. I went to school at the State University of New York at Brockport. In the early days, actually, my first recognition of the kind of the different aspirations of our students came out when I was interviewing for the Dean of Students job. And I actually interviewed for that job on the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday Greek Week in 1984. And Greek Week then was very different than Greek Week now. It was rather incredible, unbelievable. The men talked about how they were really kind of above reproach, really kind of, if you will, kings of the hill. And they literally and psychologically looked down their nose at the rest of the campus. They felt that they could do anything they wanted, that their alumni would support them. And you know, being Greek was really important. At one point I asked the women who were there, since we'd just been co-ed for a few years, a little over a decade, what were their aspirations? And several women looked at me straight in the eye and said that their aspiration was to become the little sisters at the fraternities. And I thought, oh my goodness, you can, you know, I didn't say this obviously, but I thought to myself, you can do so much better than that. You can be so much better than that. But that was the early stages of this transition from being an all-male institution to becoming a true university that was co-ed and egalitarian in that regard. And now I'm so proud to say that as you look around the student leadership positions and you look around the students who are making a difference, men and women both play a role in that. I'm not recommending we return to any of these, but I'm sure they would find it interesting to know that the bed races 25 years ago consisted of fraternities taking literally a bed and putting wheels on it, putting a pole so that 4 guys could push it, putting a mattress in either a shopping cart or a bed or something, and a drunken co-ed was in the thing supposedly steering it, although there was no steering mechanism, and they would fly around down the hill, come down the fraternities around the curves, down by Delta and Chi-Phi, and some would crash into the woods and all that. And meanwhile, the crowds were in the thousands, would stand on the sides with industrial-sized pots from the fraternity kitchens full of beer, throwing the beer on the racers as they go by. Well, needless to say, that was not a very exciting sight for the new Dean of Students. The other event during Greek Week that took me back was the Greek eating contest. And this was a contest in which student teams would eat as many hot dogs as they could with a bit of chili sauce and hot sauce on them within a time frame. And they ate until they threw up. And actually, this is kind of gross, but it's true, we had to institute a rule that you could only throw up once in the beginning of the race. It was called the 2-blow rule. If you blew lunch twice, you were out. That was not one of my prouder moments, but it was indicative of the culture at the time. Student life was really 2 basic things. It was fraternities and athletics. And the fraternities ruled the social life. Basically, that was the social life. It was not uncommon for there to be 10 parties on Friday night and 10 parties on Saturday night, keg parties with 25 or 30 kegs of beer in the house, 200 or 300 people in the house, not all students. Actually, there were many locals high school students, folks from other colleges. It felt like sometimes we were the social mecca for the East Coast. And so that was and there were parties through the week as well. Monday night football parties, Tuesday night so-called pub nights, which had an interesting origin. Back in the 60s, pub nights were really developed to have an opportunity for students to gather with faculty over a social event. But unfortunately, they evolved into keg parties when faculty disappeared and the kegs floated. So there were lots of negative consequences for that. But then Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, the only night there weren't parties on the Hill were really on Sunday nights. And so it was a dramatic, what I refer to sometimes as alcohol Disney World in that regard. Over the years, we worked with students and with Senate and other groups to develop some rules and regulations that make sense. And so registered parties are only allowed on Friday and Saturday nights now. We've banned kegs. We have banned grain alcohol, both of which are clearly linked to alcohol abuse. And the philosophy we've taken, Carrie, over the years is that our focus is on the reduction of the alcohol abuse, the reduction of harm as related to alcohol use. And so we try to work with students to make sure that the social life was a rich social life, enjoyable, but it wasn't dangerous. That was important. More recently, we've seen an exodus of parties off campus, and that's somewhat of a concern as well. But we need to find that right balance. Then last year, we launched the Lehigh After Dark program, which really acknowledges that most students want a social life. Not everybody wants to be in a party where they're drinking and there's a pressure to drink and get drunk and carry on that way. So we're really pleased with the way students have responded to the Lehigh After Dark program, which had about over 40 events last year, and total attendance was over 4,000. In the late 80s, we made a commitment that, I made a commitment actually, that we wanted to have the Hill become a university treasure, not solely the domain of fraternities. And so initially we made a commitment that eventually over time we would have both independent housing on the Hill as well as sororities moving to the Hill. And over a long period of time we moved in that direction. Now we've achieved that and think that it's better in that regard. There were some interesting challenges and discussions and debates about what was good and what was bad and all that, but again, the fundamental philosophy was that the Hill is a magnificent treasure and it belongs to all of us, all students, not simply the fraternities.
I have a broad role where I work for the Dean of Students Office and then Student Affairs. And so I most directly work with Provost Smeaton on the Student Affairs Assessment Committee, and then helping him with reports for senior officers or Board of Trustees meetings when they're wondering different demographics about student engagement numbers for students, a lot of metric-based type of work. And so one of the things we've definitely done with Greek Life is we've looked at the outcomes that we have for student affairs, and one of those is about an equitable, inclusive environment. And so one of the stories that we've told through numbers is the increase in MGC organizations over the past 5 years. So it going from 1 or 2 or 3 up to 5 or 6 now, and sort of looking at the expansion of those organizations and then actually having a council that's the Multicultural Greek Council. So we've used some of those numbers that kind of talk about Greek life and inclusion and how we're putting efforts and resources into supporting that effort. With my role specifically, one thing that I've observed with Dr. Smeaton is sort of his ability to kind of connect folks across campus, so sort of willing to kind of go out there across campus and kind of put his ideas out there and tell people, what he's trying to achieve and see how they can come on board with that and participate in our efforts has been a really nice thing to have in an upper level administrator.
The other thing that we did after the millennium in 2002, 2003, a committee was put together, a committee consisting of students, faculty, staff, alumni, parents, to look at Greek life. We had problems with houses losing their charters from their nationals because of financial reasons. We had risk management problems. We had alcohol abuse problems. There were, in preparation for that task force, we identified a lot of challenges, and we thought we had really 3 choices. We could stand back and watch the system self-destruct, which was the path it was on. We could do what other schools were doing and close it down. Or we could roll up our sleeves, work together, and try to preserve the legacy and make sure that we make the best of it. We chose the third option, of course. And that project was called Strengthening Greek Life, and that was intentional in its name. We wanted to strengthen Greek life because we knew that Greek life done well can be a very positive asset, but Greek life done poorly has no business at Lehigh. We're seeing now, as a result of that, most of the majority of our chapters are gold or silver in our accreditation process. What I find too is that when you challenge Lehigh students, they step up. And they produce and they deliver, and that's what's happened here. Not that we've solved all of our problems by any means, but now 15 years ago, our student representatives, Greek representatives, would go to their national conferences, the National Interfraternity Council, for example, and they were getting kicked out of the hotels because they were trashing rooms and getting drunk and carrying on. And they were very poor representatives of the university. Now our students are winning national awards chapters are winning awards for being chapter of the year, so we're real proud of that. We've got work to do, but we're proud of that.